Welcome to the world of Rex. It is Mr. Marvel Rex here, guiding you through the celestial energies for the week of Monday, July 21st of 2025 to July 28th of 2025. We're going to be looking at this week from largely an astrological perspective. Stay tuned. We've got some really awesome stuff. Before we dive in, you can always check out the links in the show notes. You can work with me one-on-one. You can book a reading for yourself or for a friend. It's all there. You can also Venmo me at Marvel-Rex. That's MARVAL-REX to say thank you for the pod and for the weekly vibes. You can also always subscribe to the newsletter or share the newsletter with folks. There's really exclusive, exciting, and content that is available in the newsletter. All right, so let's dive into what the big picture energies are, and then we'll go day by day through the week. So, this big picture energy week, first off, we're going to have a new moon in Cancer this week. So, I wanted to talk more about Jupiter in Cancer and Cancer as an archetype overall. So, Cancer is the fourth sign of the zodiac. It is the first water sign. It is also, from a Vedic perspective, the first moksha sign, there's moksha houses, and Cancer sort of signified or related to the fourth house. They're not the same thing, but they have similar significations. Cancer being a sort of moksha, has moksha qualities. Moksha stands for spiritual liberation through deep emotional processes. So all of the water signs are sort of karmic in the sense that they're very swayed by their emotional impulse in this lifetime. So if you know anyone who has a lot of Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio, part of their hero's journey in this lifetime is to become a master emotionally when it comes to things that are not logical. The emotions are not a logical space. Like jealousy is not logical, resentment's not logical, joy, pain, frustration. None of these things are logical. And these are the water signs. The water signs govern and are asked to be leaders in the spaces of emotional intelligence, EQ. When we have Jupiter here, so he's at 9 degrees already. He's really zooming through. He will retrograde, but he's zooming through Cancer right now very fast. We're all undergoing a massive emotional boot camp. This is just so big for everybody. Nobody gets out of this transit. Now, Jupiter is in his joy and kind of exalted in Cancer. So there's really positive emotional healing available. It's not like bad news bears, but what I would say is that if you're like, oh no, I don't want to feel my feelings, I don't want to feel my feelings, yikes, you're going against the grain. Now, I'll say it in a more positive way. If you're like, oh, wow, a lot of emotions are coming up for me right now, especially during Cancer season, it is a beautiful time to feel it all. I really think of that. I think of that. What's the song? I feel it all. I feel it all. Is that Faust? Who's it? Feist. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Anyway, but the song I feel it all. I wonder if I can actually find. I'm going to do this on the podcast. I feel it all. Feist. I was right. Feist. That's a great song to listen to this week. It's about feeling everything. And this is the initiation quality of a cardinal water sign, Cancer, saying we need to initiate emotionally. We need to actually look at our family lineage, how our ancestors processed emotions, whether our family was really open about their emotions or really repressed around their emotions. This Cancer season and Jupiter in Cancer all the way until June of next year is really asking us to heal our emotional lineage, how we emote, how we can really take brave new steps to be more emotionally intelligent. This is a powerful time to do research either through ChatGPT. We've got all this air energy that's like, use ChatGPT. Whether it's through AI or whether it's through just good, plain old school research, you want to be doing research around building more emotional intelligence. Hey, this is what, talking to ChatGPT, this is what I always do every time I get really emotionally uncomfortable. I shut down or I do X, Y, and Z. What's your advice for changing my behavior? What's your advice for deeper emotional integration? One of the things that I do, so we don't need to necessarily ask a robot here, but one of the things that I do as somebody who has very strong Cancer in my chart, before I make big emotional decisions, I ask myself whether I'm like letting myself feel the fullness of what's happening in any given moment. So I really check in. I do an audit, especially if I have to make a huge relational decision or emotional decision. I'm like, am I really, am I feeling it all? The Feist song. Am I really processing? Is there something that I'm trying to avoid? Like, where am I feeling discomfort? Can I investigate that, especially from an emotional process, like from an emotional level? I do tend to do like very like regimented daily spiritual rituals that are about feeling, getting into a meditative state and letting the feelings come up. I'm an actor, so this is a big part of my job. Not everybody feels that this is a part of their job, so it's not always as easy to be like, what's my emotional authenticity moment to moment? That's an actor's job. The only way that we're good is if we are being real moment to moment and accessing real emotions even under imaginary circumstances. Now, for most of us listening, we're not necessarily actors, so this may not, completely relate to you, but if you're not acting and you're not thinking moment to moment, you still can, as you move through your day, say, what am I feeling right now? Every check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? If you're in an uncomfortable conversation, we've got Mars and Venus square each other this week. Like if there's uncomfortable conversations coming up relationally, am I slowing down enough to touch into my body in the conversation? Like breathing into your body in the conversation and saying, how am I feeling right now? So there's a lot of juice this week around touching into emotional authenticity that is so deeply tied in with the Aries, Saturn, and Neptune storyline. The Saturn and Neptune storyline in Aries says you need to embark on your own fucking path. You do. You need to be a leader, especially if you're in Aries, but really all of us have to embark on a path that is authentically true. We are coming out of the closet about who we are. Mercury retrograde in Leo says you got to do some deeper work with your inner child and what brings you joy and your creative and artistic expression, as well as children's storylines. You have to do deeper work right now so that you can be more aligned on your authentic, individualized path. The Cancer of it all is, wow, I need to go into emotional boot camp. There's deeper work to do emotionally, and it's going to come up in relationship. How do I know this? Venus and Mars are square each other. Like this is the divine lovers. This is, even if you're not in a male female dynamic, everyone has masculinity and femininity inside of them. And they're warring right now. They're in a square, which is a crisis of action. We've got to take action this week. So last week was a little sleepy because we had a waning moon. This week, things really light up in a much deeper way where we have to start taking action, cardinal signs. So Cancer and Aries are cardinal signs. It's about taking action. And, again, Venus and Mars being in a square, it's a crisis of action. We got to take action. How can we act this week from a place of emotional intention? I'll say it this way, from a place of emotional intentionality, like I'm intentional about where I'm coming from emotionally. I'm not on autopilot. We may need to slow down. The new moon doesn't happen initially. So we'll get to the day. But Monday we don't have a new moon yet. We're still in a waning moon phase. We'll get there. But the overall tone is how am I really relating emotionally from a place of slowing down enough to know where I am before running into the fight, before running into the crisis of action. I really need to locate myself emotionally. And I would really recommend for everybody listening, how can we be really humble about where we are in terms of our EQ this week? So, what do I mean by that? Being really honest with, oh, yeah, this is where I have work to do. Because, by the way, every single one of us, including myself, has places where we're like, yep, I have to do some emotional growing there. I still don't have that figured out. I still get really reactive or I still get really shut down. Looking up, ideas around psychological, emotional, reactive processes like stonewalling, like being hyper avoidant by the silent treatment, looking up these processes and trying to understand what do I rely on that's making me feel safe in the moment, but long term leads to a lot of unhappiness. This is Jupiter and Cancer saying we need to heal these things. Or if you're like on the opposite side where you're maybe more reactive and more aggressive, this is where Cancer says we need to soften that. All right. So I started to get into the week a little bit, but we're going to dive now day by day here. We want to just keep that Cancer archetype really strong throughout really the next year, but definitely during this week because of the new moon in Cancer highlighting where healing is possible and where we need to grow up emotionally in a very real way so that our life path, our Aries hero's journey, can actually lead to results, which is what Saturn wants. Saturn in Aries wants results on behalf of the self. And if we're not emotionally accountable, we're just never going to get there. I know I'm in Hollywood, okay? I'm in Los Angeles. I'm around a bunch of artistic people all the time. I know so many people who are so talented, are so expressive, but they're so emotionally immature and they're just never going to get to where they need to go because they're unwilling to look at their emotional shadow. They're not willing to be like, oh, I need to be accountable for that. I'm like, you have so much potential. Just like heal, you know? I'm not saying that to like feel, to have any, I don't have any schadenfreude around that. I'm not like, ha 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 ha. I'm like, I want people to heal. So, to tap your deepest potential, to tap your genius, you need to constantly be touching back in and auditing yourself emotionally. Where can I grow more emotionally? Where can I have more of a healing presence for others? Cancer is the shelter, it's the womb, that's the archetype, it's the home. How can I be a place of refuge for other people, even while I'm on my own Aries tip? That's a beautiful, meditative thing to be working with this week. So, Monday, we have the moon in Gemini. It's a very dark moon phase. So, most likely, people are going to be feeling really internal. People are going to be feeling maybe even a little, you know, tucked away, shy, tired, sleepy. With Venus there can be, initial moments of overthinking around love, relationships, children, and art storylines. Which direction do I go in? Gemini's like, there's always two options, there's always five options. We could really start the week off feeling sleepy and confused, sleepy and overwhelmed. I would recommend on Monday specifically, it's not a day to overthink. It's not a day to try to logically understand an emotional situation. So let's say you're having a relational issue. Like I said last week, this isn't about figuring out who's right or wrong. Full stop. This is not about figuring out who's right or wrong. This is about being like, ooh, my mind is like a little on fire right now. Moon in Gemini. All the Moon in Gemini people I know are just constant chronic overthinkers. It's not about overthinking. It's not about the inflammation of the mind. It's like, okay, yep, I have to face some stuff, but how do I face it from a deep level of emotional accountability? Mercury retrograde in Leo says I need to lead from my heart. I need to lead from my heart. Now, I want to slow down for a moment here and just say that this week, like last week, has a really relational tone to it that's confusing. Relationships are changing this week and last week. They are changing. That's the mutable signs, Gemini and Virgo. They are changing. It is uncomfortable when relationships are changing. Venus is literally getting squared by the nodes right now, which means we are making a huge shift in how we communicate relationally this week. It is not comfortable. When Venus gets squared by the nodes, it means that there's from an evolutionary perspective, there's a skipped step that's showing itself last week and this week, particularly this week. So I'm going to probably label this episode skipped step or like skipped love or something like that, because the overarching tone this week is that there are fated changes happening because we did not fully get all the details in a relationship down pat. We have to go deeper. We have to, but where do we go deeper? What's the route? Right into the heart chakra, Leo, right into our emotional body, Cancer. So it's not about figuring out what the other person's feeling, what their heart chakra is saying. It's great to get there, but first thing first, Leo and Cancer are both about the self. Ultimately, they are both intra-personal signs. So we have to start with, where am I coming from emotionally? What am I feeling moment to moment? What is my inner child screaming right now? That's like the big question right now. It will help to clarify what the conversation ends up being that addresses the skipped step in the love, romance, even creative or written storylines. By written, I mean, Gemini rules the pen. So some people who are writers, screenwriters, people who are in publishing, this is a moment where you may be facing a skipped step in those projects, as well as, again, relationships are just hugely on the table overall. if I can talk. Oh my God. So yeah, the week starts out Moon and Gemini, like just really talkative, really wild, really confusing. And then on Tuesday, the 22nd of July, we have the moon moving into Cancer. This begins the new moon. Uh, the new moon actually, I think, happens. Wow, this is, let me just double check. This is such an interesting new moon because as the moon enters Cancer, the moon then this maybe we have, is this a new moon in Leo that I'm looking at? Oh my God, this is a new moon in Leo. Okay, so for this week, I want to talk big picture first about the core archetypal tension between Leo and Aquarius, which are two signs that sit 180 degrees apart on the zodiacal wheel. Leo tends to rule childhood, the inner child, joy, expression, freedom in a lot of ways in terms of being like a freaky, weird individual. It rules royalty, it rules actors, singers, dancers, artists. And then the opposite sign is Aquarius, which has a lot to do with groups of people and how do I fit into groups? And even though the groups are weird, I really need the group, I need to maintain decorum within the group. I need the big picture. Leo is all just about the self. Aquarius is like, okay, but I need the big picture and I need the group understanding. A really great analogy here is children playing on a playground laughing while circled around them are a dozen scientists in white lab coats observing them. Aquarius is the scientist observing the child. The Leo is the child playing on the playground. This is the tension between these two signs. A lot of my clients who are Aquariuses are in very intense dynamics with Leos, whether it's romantically, in collaboration. The tension here is that the Leo person, the Leo archetype is like, look at me, look at what I'm doing. I'm so good at what I'm doing. This is so much fun. Even if I'm insecure, I'm singing, I'm dancing, cha cha cha. Aquarius is like, oh, the Leo is very interesting. Why do they do that? Why do they have that freedom of expression? Like I see the big picture. A great example is that Leos are actors and Aquariuses are directors, right? So the director has the big picture vision of the script. The actor is just there to play their role. And the director is like, no, 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 I need to see how all the roles fit, and I'm going to direct the Leo. So one thing we want to think about here is with Leo, it's kind of the vitality of life. It's the joie de vivre. It's the spontaneity. There's just this like playful awareness at the core of the dynamic. At the base, the most shadow of Leo is just self-centeredness, um, an inability to stand outside of one's own perspective. So, like, just seeing things, sometimes some Leos who are very self centered just can't see anything objectively because they're always kind of focused on their perspective. Aquarius, on the other hand, has a lot to do with principles of rationality in the mind. So, scientists, of course, who are on the fringes of the theoretical playground, they're sort of standing at the edge, observing and conceptualizing the behavior of other humans, Leos. It doesn't have to be a Leo, but Aquariuses are very observational when it comes to other people, what motivates groups of people, how the singular reacts within a group. Aquarius really is representing the principle of understanding, whereas Leo is representing the principle of expression. So we have sort of objectivity, Aquarius, versus passion, just raw passion, Leo, and expression, passionate expression. We're about to have a Leo new moon this week. Pluto, though, is in Aquarius. So this is just a real different Leo season. We kind of had this last year for a little bit, but like, whoo, all the Leos, there's just gonna be a lot of tension between our inner child's needs, the way that we find joy and pleasure in our life, versus other people's understanding of that and how we fit into groups. So a lot of tension between groups, networks, friends, and our individual expression that's coming in this week. We are being asked to go deeper with Pluto. We are being asked to go much deeper when it comes to how can I be my full self, Leo, perform as myself, Leo, without dominating other people or not being open to their perspective, not listening. So like this, I know a lot of Leo risings. I've got strong Leo in my chart, so I know personally they sometimes struggle to listen. or they're really any feedback that comes towards the Leo is through the prism of, oh, how dare you say that about me? Like I'm perfect. Like I'm a king, I'm a queen. And Aquariuses, on the other hand, are very good at seeing kind of everybody's kinks in the armor. They can see the little, the chink in the armor, rather. They can see the like, oh, well, that's where that person does that thing. And not as psychological necessarily as Scorpio, but still observational and quantitative. Like I'm looking at all the data that's coming in about all the people, and I'm trying to actually find an objective perspective. Aquarians, if you know an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, Aquarians tend to have a very rational lens through which they understand life. They are more open usually to trying to work with the group to make something happen, right? The director of the film needs to work with the entirety of the crew to make the film happen. A Leo, or the actor, doesn't necessarily have to be nice to anybody. They just have to like come in and do their job and be themselves and do their self-expression. So this week, we're going to have this tension of the Leo Aquarius archetype because there's a new moon in Leo, and it is pretty much exactly opposite Pluto and Aquarius. When we have an opposition baked in, particularly Leo and Aquarius, there is incredible tete-a-tetes that happen head to head. You and I, we got a face off. And it's a face off between what I'm expressing versus what the other person's expressing, and the tension of how does that even fit into the bigger picture rationally? What are we doing rationally with the real emotions that are coming up? Leo, with the passion piece, can be a lot more emotional and heart chakra based, whereas Aquarius is very cerebral and very much the mind. And there can be clashes between what we know we need to do rationally for the larger society, Aquarius, and what we're really feeling in the moment that's so raw and real and virile, Leo, the lion, roaring. There can be, similar to the Mars retrograde that happened in December, November, January, February of 2024 to 2025, there can be really big clashes in your life that go back to that period of time, feels reminiscent of that period of time between me being myself, Leo, and how friends or groups or networks are saying, I don't like that. Power dynamics. I don't like that. We got to shut that down. You can't be your full self if you're going to be part of this group. So that's the shadow that can arise at this time with an opposition. Because Mars has already done the journey through Leo and Cancer, you really want to think back, like, what did I gain when it comes to my own self-confidence, and how can I hold my ground right now? Particularly if you are a Leo or a Cancer. If you're an Aquarius, you might want to think, am I trying to control my relationships? Am I trying to reduce somebody to something so that I can sort of place them in a role? Uh, do I need to let more of my own feelings be felt? That's a really great question for Aquariuses, and I would even say Capricorns. All right. We want to lean towards the Leo of it all right now because Saturn and Neptune are in a trine, very supportive energy to the new moon, which means that there's flowing energy between going and carving our own path based on our own authentic passion, Leo, and basically saying to the group, hey, I'm willing to work with you, but this is my real truth. This is really where I'm coming from. And I want to say that one more time. I'm willing to work with you because there is a sextile from Pluto to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Sextiles are about working and applying a little bit of grit to get something moving, like lubricating a machine and then running the machine. Like, okay, we're going to make this run. We're going to put some effort in. We're going to get some grease behind the wheel. So we're not abandoning groups right now, but we could be having massive breakthroughs this week when it comes to groups, like sort of scientific observational tension as it relates to the singular individual king, queen, royal person that we are, and how we fit into the larger picture with other people. Um, you know, yeah, there's some deep psychological stuff here too. We'll dive in. Let's dive into Monday. So on Monday we have let's go back. I'm a couple days ahead here. So Monday, here we go, July 21st. So Monday we start out with the moon in Gemini. with Venus in a square to Mars and the South Node. So Moon in Gemini can be lots of thoughts, trying to figure out a relational situation, the square to Mars. I would say like ooh, Monday is not the day, but I think people are going to do it. But I'm just going to say it. Monday is not the day. Even Tuesday is not the day to try to solve a relational problem through words or through logic. Yep. Here we go. The big tension of this week is like what I'm feeling passionately versus the logic of the situation. Yep. Leo and Aquarius. So, probably an inflamed mind on Monday, Tuesday. I think this is going to be overthinking, overanalysis, particularly when it comes to creative projects, romantic relationships, and children's storylines. Okay. Gemini always thinks that there's multiple options. There sometimes is, there sometimes isn't. Uh, it's not a sign known for its simplicity. Okay. Gemini is not known for being simple, it's known for being dual in nature and contradictory. So our mind can feel very contradictory on Monday, Tuesday, particularly around those themes of love and creativity in children. I wouldn't make any big decisions on this day. You know, Mercury's retrograde, the moon is in a Mercury ruled sign. Like we are not thinking clearly. Okay. The square to Mars and the South Node, which are about to conjoin, is like, oops, the way that I've been thinking about this relationship is not serving me. I have to make some changes just in my head. Like, I have to take this noggin and I have to put in new thoughts, incept myself with new thought patterns, ones that should be more positive. All right. And not about controlling a situation. So, you know, when we're traumatized as, let's say, children, we then go into the world as adults and we really try to hyper control our relationships because we're afraid of getting hurt again. If we come from a trauma, you know, a traumatic childhood, household, or even having a traumatic relationship as an adult, we can then go into new relationships thinking, I can't trust this person. So I have to overanalyze everything to make sure that I'm safe at any given moment. And it actually gets in the way of me having true intimacy, which is what Leo ultimately wants. Leo wants to be loved just for who they are. And we all have Leo in our chart. And this is a Mercury retrograde in Leo. So we're all trying to figure out, what do I need to know to be loved? The sun is also going to move into Leo, and then we're going to have a new moon here. So this is just like triple like whammy Leo time of, do I love myself? Do I have a connection to my heart chakra? I.e., do I know what I'm feeling moment to moment? And do I also know how to communicate to people what my real emotional moment to moment experience is without trying to hyper control my relationships? All right. That's part of the tension with Pluto and Aquarius is like a lot of people are going to have to let go of trying to control group dynamics or control dynamics in their relationships, even. Again, particularly Capricorns and Aquariuses. And I would say really specifically Aquariuses. It's a weird Monday. Like I'm like, oh, it's not easy. It's not the worst thing we've seen this year by any stretch, but it's just like relationships are changing big time. I said that last week. Relationships are changing this week, and the ante is higher this week than last week. So it's like the stakes feel higher all of a sudden because there's no answers right now. And I actually would, my advice on Monday, Tuesday is like, you don't need any answers. It's not the time to like figure it out. It's the time to get really clear with your own thoughts and maybe talk to a therapist or talk to somebody where you're like, hey, these are the ideas I'm having. What do you think? And likely the response from the therapist is, sounds like things are changing. Okay, well, things are changing. We got to be flexible right now. We're going to know more later. When things are in flux, we have to just watch it play out. And that's what I'm seeing here in a very real way. But we have to watch it play out in the direction of I'm being more emotionally honest in my relationships, moment to moment. I'm being more honest about showing off my heart to people and having my heart on my chest in a way that's still strong. Okay. So that's the work. Not necessarily an easy week. There's some growing pains. I really see it. Now, by Tuesday, in the early morning, actually, PST, so like 5:30 a.m., we get the moon entering Cancer. Really, really crabby. Okay, this is a super dark moon in Cancer, which means that the moon is not new yet, but it looks like it's new. You're not going to see it in the sky above. So very internal, very moody, very crabby, but there's a incredible light at the end of the tunnel, which is that Jupiter is in Cancer right now, telling us to emotionally heal. So this is internalized healing. You do not necessarily need to show all your cards yet. In fact, we really want to wait, if we can, for the relational dynamics to like incite the relational dynamics. We want to wait until that Leo new moon. It has not happened yet on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I would recommend going to a spa, going to a body of water, going to nature, going to therapy, going by yourself to feel your feelings, talking to your ancestors, talking to your deceased, parents, grandparents. You want to have this is a me time moment. Okay, I'm going to feel my me time. I'm going to have a spiritual experience. I'm going to go to a lake, a body of water. I'm going to feel my feelings. This is very much Tuesday. The moon is at the moon, sorry, is at 0 degrees of Cancer, and the sun is at 29 degrees of Cancer. We have one of these weird moments where it's like the moon and the sun are technically, it's so funny because it's almost a new moon in Cancer, but it's not. It's actually, that was last month. It's a new moon in Leo, but the moon and the sun share the same zodiac sign just for a second, which on Tuesday early morning, you could really feel like, okay, something is emotionally shifting and I'm feeling it, but I don't know how to articulate it yet. So there's breadcrumbs, but again, you do not want to come out and have a deep, long conversation with a partner or a business partner or a child or even a creative project. You don't want to go into those situations when you're still in the process of feeling through your own emotional location. Like, where am I right now emotionally? So this is more about, again, going away, tucking away, having that dark moon moment where you're in the dark with yourself is what I would recommend. Things get a little easier on Wednesday because the moon moves over Jupiter and is like, okay, okay, I felt my feelings on Monday, Tuesday. Monday, I was a little in my head. Tuesday, I was like very emo, but I was feeling some deep stuff. Wednesday, oh, I'm feeling optimistic a little bit. Like, it's good that I'm feeling my feelings. I'm growing up. Like, there's very much a sense of like, I'm growing up. Things are working out. I have more faith in the universe. I'm not trying to hyper control. I'm so glad I listened to Marvel and just felt my feelings on Tuesday, because on Wednesday, I'm feeling more buoyant. And then we get to this really interesting moment where Mars crosses over the South Node in Virgo. Technically, that happened on Tuesday, but by Wednesday, there's a lot of support from Jupiter and the moon saying, yes, you're releasing the desire to control, Virgo. You're releasing the desire for everything to be perfect in your relationships, Virgo. So, you may cut out a thought pattern at this time. You may cut out a behavior, even when it comes to health and mental health. Mars contacting the South Node generally signifies a behavioral change, usually retracting a behavior. So the South Node, again, is a drain. So we're draining or removing a behavior. In a Mercury ruled sign, Mercury being retrograde, it may take extra time to really remove this behavior fully. So it takes 40 days to change behavior generally. Like, that's the idea. That sounds about right in the middle of a retrograde. Like, you don't have to. I really want to say that so that all of the Virgo people who are listening are not like, oh my God, okay, I'm done with this. It's like, you may regress over the next, month. But the big key point with Mars moving over the South Node is that we are leaving behaviors behind right now that get in the way of our happiness and get in the way of feeling close to other people, because we're trying so hard to protect ourselves from potential threats that aren't necessarily happening in the environment. They're historical. All right. The moon in Cancer on Tuesday, Wednesday is just such a beautiful time to feel the feelings deeply and ask yourself, what do I really need to let go from my past? So Cancer is associated with nostalgia in all of its forms. And part of that nostalgic experience is going back in time in your own psyche, your own body, your own nervous system, and saying, okay, like, I'm feeling that through in a deeper way so that I no longer feel like I have to control everything in my relationships. South Node in Virgo. Okay. So that's what I would recommend overall. We then get to ding, ding, ding. Thursday, we get the moon entering Leo, and we get our new moon. Very interesting here. We get the new moon. I want to get this exact moment as we roll in. So right around, it looks like 9:30 a.m. Yep, 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, July 24th, PST. We get the moon moving into Leo. It will pretty much immediately conjoin the sun. So there's the new moon is just like bang on the 24th. They are in direct opposition to the degree to Pluto. Look, I loved that Gemini new moon that happened in late May. I liked the Jupiter. I liked the Cancer new moon. This new moon in Leo is deeply cathartic, but not comfortable. Okay, like I'm like, well, it's not comfortable. There's a lot of support from the outer planets, which is Uranus and Saturn and Neptune, but Pluto here is like he's running the show. He's like, ooh, he's really coming in. The sun technically is in its domicile, so the sun is very strong. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Pluto is demanding that there is deep psychological death and rebirth right now. So this new moon, which is going to really track for the next 2 weeks, so July 24th plus 14 days, that's the time period. The next 2 weeks, we have to do the Scorpio work. And I say Scorpio because Scorpio is the modern home of Pluto. So we have to do the Scorpio/Pluto work, which is deep psychological processing, going into our own shadow, the parts of ourself that we have judgment over or shame or guilt, and really addressing the elephants in the room in relationship, because a sun Pluto opposition 180 degrees is always relational, you and another person. This is very intense if you are a Leo or an Aquarius, to some degree also a Taurus or a Scorpio. We are being asked to reclaim our inner joy and our inner expression at this time. It is not going to come without a fight. And by fight, I don't necessarily mean a blowout, but it will be reflected through the tension of another person. This reclamation of the self will be reflected through another person. The more we are trying to control the narrative, South Node in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, the more this is going to be difficult. The more flexible we are, Venus in Gemini, the more we're willing to try things out that are new, the easier this is going to go. Now, the sun is very strong in Leo, which means that we're going to be feeling really freaking proud. We're all of us. This is a collective. Everyone's going to, especially the people ruled by the moon, but like everybody's going to be feeling this, especially Leos and Cancers. We're all going to be like, no, this is like my experience emotionally. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling. We'll be less reactive if we have a more consistent emotional expression. Like if I'm really doing this work as an actor. I'm just much more honest about my moment to moment emotional experience with people in my life. I let people know. I do not expect people to read minds. So for me, I'm not repressing a lot. So I'm not the explosion is probably not going to happen for me because I'm just consistently being like, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling. For people who tend to tuck that away, this can be an explosive moment. So just know that you or other people in your life could be like volcanic right on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It really is like the next couple days. It can be explosive. It can be revelatory. Secrets can get revealed when Pluto is involved in a new moon. There can be significant breaks from groups and networks and friendships. Like some friendships are definitely dying during this new moon and the 2 weeks to follow. It's like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Or a dynamic in a friendship or a group or network is irrevocably changed and over. The fixed signs do not bend, they break. And therefore, there is some kind of, I think of like breaking free out of jail. Some people are going to be breaking up at this time because they're like, oh my God, I was in an abusive dynamic, So that's, it's not funny, but I'm just like, that's the energy here. It's like, we're making a break for it. We're running. I would say though, because Mercury is retrograde, the full story has not unfolded. And if you try to make a break right now, you're probably going to have to return back to the situation because Mercury is retrograde. That does not mean that the break won't happen or that the dynamic won't change. It's just, it's going to take way longer. It's going to take all the way through Mercury stationing direct and leaving its shadow, which really isn't active that's not going to happen at least for another 3-4 weeks. So yes, the new moon is 2 weeks long. Yes, there will be revelations. The retrogradation of Mercury says not all the answers are here. We don't actually know. So we need to go slow when it comes to proclamations, but we do need to be honest about what's happening emotionally for us. especially for Leos, Leo risings in particular, you want to really focus on what has happened in your past and how it's informing your situation emotionally right now. Because I think a lot of Leos are going to want to make big proclamations about their relationship status, but they're being haunted by past experiences that are clouding the situation. This can be for all of us, especially as it relates to creative projects, self expression, your inner child. I would really recommend working either with me one on one or doing, because I do inner child healing meditations with clients. That would be my high recommendation, is doing inner child healing meditations. If you're like, oh, I want to know what that is, I don't necessarily, I'm not going to book a session, you can just type in inner child healing meditation and you can do that on your own. Okay. That's the power of Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, is like, we can use technology to educate ourselves and do healing work. So that's really on the curriculum right now. Oh, it's a really intense full moon, but there is a lot of help from Saturn and Neptune and Uranus, the outer planets, saying, hey, if you are willing to have a bigger picture perspective of this moment, so if you're willing to pull out of the telenovela and look at the larger arc of your relationship or your business partnership or your creative endeavor, there's actually a lot of potential to pivot in this moment and try new things. That's really the Aries and Gemini energy. These are both signs associated with kind of like going forward without all the answers, but just trying it out and being like, okay, we're going to see how this works. Like, I'm kind of doing this with like, I'm MacGyvering the situation. I have a shoestring and a little paperclip, and I'm going to figure out how to make this work. We don't need it to be perfect, Virgo. We do not need it to be perfect. Like, this is not a moment to be like, oh my God, my relationship is imperfect. We're done. It's like, oh, there's a huge elephant in the room. It's revelatory. We have to deal with it. Let's try all these different ways. Let's get creative. Let's, put some hard work and grit into it, as long as we're coming from an individually authentic place. That's the really key point with Saturn and Aries, is that we have to be very authentic about where we're coming from. So that's the new moon. Overall, Thursday, Friday, you want to, even parts of Saturday, you want to be coming from a place of you want to come from the place of an actor, singer, or dancer. You want to express yourself. It is time to express yourself. However, Mercury is retrograde in Leo, saying if you are expressing yourself and you're hitting a roadblock, you probably have to go back in time. You have to go and be more internal. You have to journal. You have to go back in time to recover whatever is causing a roadblock emotionally in your life right now. Again, inner child healing meditations, like, this is really the homework. But also, if you have an art practice, I would really dive into that this week as a way to process. So instead of being like, I'm going to solve all my relationship problems this week, no, it's not the week to do it. There's tons of question marks here. There's not a lot of answers with Mercury retrograde. It's a ton of questions. We're not solving anything this week. We're really playing. We have to play. We have to dance with the discomfort. We really have to dance with the discomfort. That's such a good phrase for this energy. It's like, oop, things are uncomfortable. There's big relationship blowups happening, or head to heads, and I need to try something new. I need my partner to try something new. We need to be experimental. We need to be both honest separately and together with our experimentation, with what we are trying that is new. Okay. Not trying to control people. That's like the big thing I want to say here, is like, this is not, I mean, we should never try to control other people, because it's completely inefficient. But this curriculum right now that I'm seeing astrologically is like, don't control people. Don't try to control people. Like, this is not going to work. It's going to backfire. So one way that can manifest is we sometimes have really unconscious ways of manipulating other people because of our own trauma and our own blocks. Like, we literally, it's in our peripheral vision. We can't see that we're behaving in ways that are about trying to control our partners. The way that we know we're doing this, even if it's unconscious, is if we feel more and more disconnected from the closest people in our lives. If you leave a conversation, you're like, I feel farther apart from that person, even though we just tried to connect, there's probably a blind spot that one or both people are having that have to do with deeply doing some deep inner child healing and doing some deep emotional healing, to be like, oh wait, yep, I'm if you have emotional awareness, then you can really change the behavior. Without emotional awareness, it's impossible to change the behavior. Like humans are only motivated to change behavior once we have emotional breakthroughs. Like that's it. If we're not feeling it, we're not going to heal it. We're not going to change it. So the work here during the Leo new moon for 2 weeks to follow, and really 4 weeks with the Mercury retrograde, is okay, I have to go deeper into my own process emotionally. And it may require taking space from partners like that's definitely in this new moon. I see people being like, we're like I said earlier, taking a break, making a break. Oh, we're going to create some boundaries so that I can do some healing. I need you to do some healing, and then we're going to come back to the drawing board in a month. That's a way to work with this energy from a timing perspective. The energy does shift about halfway through Saturday. We do get the moon in Virgo. This Virgo weekend, Saturday, Sunday, is about really deepening in on a meditative level to, okay, what am I trying to hyper control? What do I feel like needs to be perfect that doesn't actually have to be perfect because life is messy? It is a time to assert control over the things you do have control over. So you have control over what you put in your body, how you move your body, how much you sleep. You have control over what you do with your own autonomous being. So if you are exhausted by the Leo new moon on Thursday, Friday, then Saturday, Sunday is I'm going to go and Marie Kondo my room. I'm going to go and clean the hell out of my space. I'm going to go and you could even go, with Virgo, Pisces, the axis here is healing and spas. Like I think of a spa. I'm like, it's a time to go take care of your body. It's a time to go to the gym. You can control these things. So leaning into the things you can control is powerful at this point. At this point, with the South Node there and Mars, maybe you're releasing certain behaviors that are self-undoing. That's what you want to be focusing on. You don't necessarily want to be focusing on making a partnership perfect, even though it's going to be very tempting to do that. Okay, the Virgo activation is like, and now I'm going to try to control my partner, even though Marvel said not to. It's like, okay, I can't make the partnership perfect right now. It's in flux. I need to trust that it's in flux for a reason. And it's just like, oof, with Mercury, with Venus being at the end degrees of Gemini in a square to Mars, still, it's like we have to just trust that our relationships are changing for the better. We have to be flexible in this process. We have to trust, we have to have faith, North Node in Pisces. It's very fated, FATED changes in relationships. And the more flexible we are, like a yogi or a gymnast, the easier this is going to be. Willing to step out of our comfort zones. The beauty of Gemini here is I always joke that Gemini, Venus in Gemini is a trisexual. She'll try anything once. So you want to think about what am I willing to try more than once or try this new thing that I've never tried before. That's what you want to channel this week rather than, oh, I'm going to just bury my head in the sand and try to prove that I'm right. Or I got really prideful because Leo new moon, right? I got really prideful and I'm going to bury my head in the sand because how dare they say that to me? Like, that's not what we want to do. So I'll say it more positively. We want to be very flexible. We want to have humility this week, knowing that there's going to be relational tete-a-tetes. There will absolutely. There's no way that this new moon's happening without people being like, boom, like, running into each other. So there will be run-ins. The more flexible we are, the more regulated our nervous system is, the easier this is going to be. We are the only one. We are the only one who is responsible for regulating our nervous system. Yes, we should be in partnerships where we can co-regulate, but the foundation of that is you knowing how to regulate yourself first. So that's not another person's job. That is the foundational thing for any relationship, is that each person in the relationship or the business partnership or the creative endeavor knows how to handle their own shit. And then we can co-regulate. We can make things work together, right? So that's the curriculum this week. I believe in each and every one of you. If you want to go deeper into this process and how it affects your own chart, you can check out the links in the show notes to work with me one-on-one. Please send this podcast to any Leos or Aquariuses who are having a hard time right now, because they need to listen to this week's episode. Even Tauruses and Scorpios are going to be feeling this pretty profoundly. Yeah. Just send them my way, send them to the World of Rex. Do check out the newsletter as well for extra bonus content this week. And I will talk to you next week. As always,